The New York Football Giants went undefeated in preseason and put up 30 points in 3 consecutive preseason games for the first time in franchise history. Welcome to the Empire State Sports Report. I'm your host, Adrianna. You guys probably know me as New York Giants fangirl on social media. Make sure you're following along on all channels because there is a lot to come because Cut Down Day is coming and we are 2 weeks away from the regular season of football. I cannot freaking wait. So excited. This podcast is brought to you by Believe Network and FanDuel Sportsbook. You guys already know, and if you don't know, now you know, that the number one bet that I took on FanDuel Sportsbook about 2 weeks ago is Abdul Carter as Defensive Rookie of the Year. Would recommend that you do the same because he's going to go off this year and I can't wait. But remember to always bet responsibly. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into our preseason recap. The Giants beat the Pats. Not only did they beat the Pats, they smoked them 42-10. And we had a defensive touchdown. Can you believe it? Honestly, what a great preseason for the Giants. And before anyone starts commenting or rolling their eyes, oh, it's just preseason, I want to tell you something interesting that Joe Schoen said. Art Stapleton went back and talked about this, and I thought it was really interesting. Joe Schoen said this after, I think, his first press conference with the Giants. He said that preseason is really important to them because if the Giants can win games during preseason, it means that the depth on their roster is better than the other team's depth across the board. So I know everyone's going to be like, you know, when we talk about the different players and stuff, oh, they didn't even play against starters. They were going against 2s and 3s and whatever. Okay, but our 2s and 3s are better than the Patriots, Bills, and Jets 2s and 3s. Like at some point, I think that's fair to be optimistic about because we've gotten smoked in preseason, whether it's been the starters or the fourth stringers over the year. We've had offensive lines who have given up sacks upon sacks upon sacks in the preseason. And you know what that's all led to is that happening in the regular season. So I just think it's fair to be a little optimistic about the fact that the Giants did well in preseason. They've got more talent than they've had in a long time, and we actually saw it contribute to wins, and that's great. So I want to talk about Giants Pats specifically. Let's go through the good, the bad, and the ugly because there's a little bit of all of it. So starting with the quarterbacks. We didn't see Russell Wilson. We barely saw any starters, which is fine by me. Jaxson Dart, 6 for 12 for 81 yards and 1 touchdown. And he was sacked once for 6 yards. Surprise, surprise. Guess who gave up the sack? Evan Neal. I know none of us are surprised. But Dart overall had a great game. Impressed with what I've seen from him. The pocket awareness is incredible. Very accurate balls. He gets the ball out quickly. He leads the wide receiver, throws it before the receiver is even in his break. He throws with anticipation. Like there's so many things to really like about Jaxson Dart and be optimistic about. So I feel like he's progressing really well throughout preseason. He's done really good things. And I think for a lot of us, like the people like me who are a little like on draft night, the more I see from him, the more optimistic I am that maybe the Giants got it right this time. And I will say that, you know, if Dable can continue to develop Dart, especially at this rate, and when he gets reps in the NFL and looks functional and competent and can run this offense and make smart decisions and slide, for the love of God, slide on the goddamn ground, then, you know, I will have my faith restored in Brian Dable as this Giants head coach. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot, that it feels like ultimately he needed to get his guy, and the Giants were going to give him the opportunity to do that, for him to get his quarterback, get the guy with the qualities and attributes and everything that he was looking for in his quarterback. And maybe, just maybe, Jaxson Dart is that guy. Now, 2 things I want to talk about with Jaxson Dart, because we already talked about enough good things about him. Number one, the sliding. Okay, so there were a couple things that I thought interesting about this whole scenario. As soon as he doesn't slide and fumbles the ball, he has to run over to the tent for the medical because they said his head hit the ground, and he's going like this. For those of you who are listening, he's like motioning and moving his hand in circles to try to hurry up, speed it up, because there's 2 minutes left and he wants to get back on the field. He's cleared from the concussion, and Dable does not let him back on the field. I was honestly kind of laughing to myself watching how pissed off Dart was that he was not allowed back on the field. And he was asked about it afterward, and he said, that's the first time I've ever been taken out of a game. Okay, well, Now you learned your lesson. I hope. It was your fault you got taken out of the game because Dable said afterwards, you have to fucking slide there. Like, I I know that everyone learns at different rates. And I know, when you're in the middle of a game and you're just fighting for that extra yards and you're super competitive, like I am very competitive. I understand the need to do the one last thing to just beat the guy. Like I get it. And I love that he has that. But you cannot allow that to be to your detriment. It's happened before, and it's just like he has to learn that, and it's driving me a little crazy. So I hope the fact that he ended up having to go to the concussion tent, he's very lucky that he does not have a concussion, and that Dable still wouldn't let him back in the game. And I have to say, good on Dable for that, because I hope that's enough for Dart to learn his lesson. Like when I'm in the middle of that, I just have to get down. I have to do it. I have to push away all the thoughts that are telling me to get that 1-2 extra yards, that it makes a difference. And yes, it makes a difference, but you know what makes more of a difference? Your starting quarterback being injured and having to put a backup in. Like we don't want to see that from the future from Jaxson Dart. So the second thing I want to say is less about him and more about the receivers. They really let him down tonight. It was really frustrating to see the quarterback make some perfect throws and the wide receiver not hold up their end of the bargain. And Dart has said this before. He said, I'm always going to be aggressive and I'm always going to throw the ball. I'm going to trust the wide receiver to make the play. And, there were 6 incompletions and probably 4 or 5 of them were drops on the wide receivers. So, and look, I know not all of these guys are going to make the roster, but when it's guys like Jalen Hyatt who might make this roster, and it's guys like Bo Collins who showed out and had a great game and a great summer and is fighting for a roster spot and then goes 0 for 4 against the Pats. Like, come on. You're fighting to make a team. You have to make those catches. So, you could tell Dart was a little frustrated. It's the same thing with Jameis. I'm watching Jameis like try to control his emotions as he's just like, come on, catch the ball. Like I gave you a catchable ball. What are you doing? So, that I think is still pretty frustrating. And obviously there's no Neighbors and Slayton and whatever out there, but you're talking about guys who are going to be in the rotation and who are probably going to get snaps at some point this year. You want to feel like they're reliable. So when we get to the wide receivers, there were some guys who had great showings, and we'll talk about them. But I want to round out the quarterback. So overall, great showing from Jaxson Dart. I feel very optimistic about him. I still think that he needs time to develop. There's not a single reason to rush him in. Let's let Russell Wilson play some games, hopefully win us some games, and then we'll see about Jaxson Dart. And if Russ looks horrible and he's throwing interceptions and he is, taking sacks he shouldn't be taking, and we're getting blown out in games, then it's a different conversation. But as of right now, Russell is a starting quarterback, and that's the way that it should be. Moving along. Jameis Winston, 4 for 8, 47 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. To me, that interception was on the wide receiver, not on him. The same thing that happened with Russ last week. The wide receivers are not where they're supposed to be. Couldn't track the ball, not following the right route. I don't know what the issue was there, but miscommunication issue with the wide receivers, definitely frustrating. You could see it on Jameis Winston's face and, whatever. But overall, love to see Jameis out there. I think that, we shouldn't be rushing Dart in. And if something happens with Russ, put Jameis in for a little bit and then you can go to Dart. But Jameis is just a great energy out there. He's always fun to watch on the sidelines. All of them, like, I know it feels like we're beating a dead horse with this, but the energy is different. You could see it on the sidelines. Dable talked about it in his post game in the locker room, said, he loves that everyone is supporting each other. You see Russ Wilson high-fiving everyone when they come in. You see Malik Neighbors run out to Jaxson Dart after the touchdown to Dulcich. Like it seems like a tight group. Anyway, does that matter? I don't know. I hope so. But great showing from Jameis Winston. The interception was what it was. Next up, Tommy DeVito, who also had a great showing, 17 for 20 for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tommy DeVito looked great out there. I think, we talk about Dable and what we think he's capable of from a coaching perspective when it comes to quarterbacks. Tommy DeVito looks like a hell of a lot better quarterback this year than he did last year. I still don't think he belongs on this roster. When you have Jameis, Russ, and Dart, like that should be our quarterback situation. But I'm happy for Tommy that he had a great game. He did a really nice job, threw the ball with accuracy, with zip, made smart decisions. I just feel like he did a lot of good things. Again, he's going against probably the third stringers there for the Patriots, but it's confidence building for all of these guys to make plays and to have them work and to score touchdowns, to ultimately put up points. It's how you win football games. So great game from Tommy DeVito. I liked what I saw out of him. Let's move along to the rushing. There were 24 attempts for 111 yards. My boy Dante Miller led the pack, 11 carries for 41 yards. I will say that Jonathan Ward, I think, had a nice showing. He had 6 carries for 29 yards, and Dart was 1 for 23. He was in the top 3 with those guys. I think Ward did a nice job, but I think when you look at what Turbo's done throughout the entire preseason, it's not even close. And also, Turbo went 100 for 100, like 100% catch rate in every single preseason game. He caught every single ball that came his way, and he's got special teams capabilities. So, I love Turbo. I'm really rooting for him to make this roster. I think that everything that he's done in the preseason has only increased his stock, and I hope that the Giants give him the opportunity. Last guy I want to talk about on rushing is Cam Scatterboo, who was back in the game. He had 3 carries for 12 yards. Obviously, we knew that even if we saw him, it was only going to be short-lived. I'm glad he's back on the field, glad that he's healthy. Let's hope that it continues up until week 1. And you guys know we were all pumped about him on draft night. He's been even better during camp, and I cannot wait to see him on the field during a regular season game. So obviously super excited about Scat. All right, let's move along to the receivers. There were 27 receptions for 326 yards and 5 touchdowns, which is impressive. But what was disappointing to me is like I said, you've got guys who are fighting for roster spots, who are proving that they deserve to be on this team, making mistakes, dropping balls that they should be catching. And then you've got Greg Dulcich and Thomas Fidone, who catch almost every single ball that comes their way, who Greg Dulcich now has caught 3 touchdowns in 2 games, who runs a good route, has great hands, can catch tight window throws, make contested catches. You've got Fidone, who was supposed to be the 6th-round practice squad, probably, tight end, who is super athletic, makes incredible catches, gets good yak, again, catches everything that comes his way. The tight end group is going to be really, really hard for this Giants team to figure out, and I don't envy them, but at least they have good options, and it's going to be a tough decision as opposed to saying our tight ends suck. It could be worse. All right, now let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit. Gunnar is someone who absolutely increased his stock in the last 2 games. He's someone that during camp when he first came back, I was like, I don't really think that he's going to have any chance of making this roster. And Amir Smith-Marset was having a good camp, did a nice job, did a great job last year on special teams, is pretty explosive, like high expectations for him. And then Gunnar comes in and last night goes 3 for 3 for 68 yards, also had a great game last week with different quarterbacks. He's been able to just kind of slip right back in the fold and done a great job, been very impressive. So I think the Amir Smith-Marset versus Gunnar Olszewski conversation is going to be really interesting. And I think it's also going to be tough on the front office staff. At this point, I don't necessarily know who I would choose one over the other. I kind of think that you can't really go wrong with either. I really like that Smith-Marset has a lot of explosiveness, and you see that on his returns. And you can also see it when he's used in the slot. But I think Gunnar, also had some great plays last night. Like the 50-yard run was awesome. So I don't know, but he's definitely someone that helped increase his stock after that game. You know who didn't help himself is Jalin Hyatt. I am so frustrated with this guy, and I know we all are. And I know so many of you are going to be like, I'm done. The Jalin Hyatt experiment is over. I want him off this team. And that is fine. You're probably right. It's really frustrating because he makes flashy plays like the touchdown from Jameis Winston. You're like, yes, this is why we wanted Jalin Hyatt. And then 2 plays before that, or a couple plays before that, he drops like a perfect ball that he should have caught. It's really, the inconsistencies with him are beyond frustrating. And I don't know what this front office staff is going to do, but what I will say is I don't think Jalin Hyatt has done enough to prove that he should be the wide receiver 4 on this team. So it's going to be very interesting. We will see what ends up happening with him. Now, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Zach Pascal, and Bo Collins and Montreal Washington, some of the other guys that I wanted to talk about. Now, Montreal Washington went 3 for 3 for 26 yards last night. The Giants already cut him. Jordan Bly went 2 targets, 0 receptions. They also cut him. Bo Collins, I really thought was going to be probably the 6th wide receiver on this team, goes 0 for 4 last night. Like, oh my God, the frustration with these wide receivers. And now I'm a little bit worried that maybe we don't have as good of depth at wide receiver as I thought we were going to. So that's a little concerning, but I think you've got the capabilities of the tight ends who all can be used as pass catchers, which is hopefully going to help out this offense. Plus, you've got Malik Neighbors, Slayton, and Wandale. We haven't really seen a ton of. So I don't know, but I'm starting to think that could be a little bit of a concern. Little Jordan Humphrey was 1 for 1 for 38 yards. I'm kind of feeling like now it could be between him and Beau Collins for that 6 wide receiver role. I also think Zach Pascal, who out of 3 targets had 2 receptions for 21 yards, he also has done a nice job throughout preseason. He's definitely had some drops that he should have caught, but I think ultimately he might have done enough to make the roster. So it's going to be really interesting to end up seeing what happens with this team and what they decide on. But overall, 326 yards through the air. Last week, they had over 400. This offense is capable of moving the ball, and that also means that the offensive line has done a really good job. I was focused on Marcus Bowe last night. I thought he did a hell of a job. He had a really good game. Evan Neal, oh, man. I think it's over, guys. I think it's over with Evan Neal. Like, if GVR goes down, I don't want Evan Neal in that right guard spot. And I can't remember if I talked about this or not, but Evan Neal last week against the Jets looked serviceable in the game, right? Then I went back and watched the film. Bobby Skinner, Giants Nation show on YouTube. I would recommend watching this. It's 13 minutes long. It's every single Evan Neal snap from the Jets game. He looks so much worse on film than he did in the game. And then last night, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if there's any hope for him. You guys, he was going against second and third string players. He didn't go against a single starter and did not look good at all. So can't wait for the film to drop for that, because I'm sure it's going to be even worse the second time around. But outside of that, I think the offensive line is coming along nicely. I'm really impressed with Marcus Bowe. I think Austin Schlottman did a nice job at center. I think that they're probably going to keep 10 offensive linemen. At this point, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with Evan Neal, because I don't think he helped himself at all last night, which is really, really unfortunate. So one more thing I want to say, because I know I've talked a lot about how much I love Turbo, and he went 3 for 3 in the receiving game last night for 12 yards. He also fumbled the ball and lost it last night, which is unfortunate. Obviously you don't want to turn the ball over, but the good news for the Giants is they were able to turn it around and win that game. So we're going to move along to the defense, but first let's talk about ZipRecruiter. Finding great candidates to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You've got a ton of resumes, but just not enough of them that have the right skills, experience, or they just don't seem like the right fit for your office space. But not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter has smart technology that identifies the top talent for your specific roles, and they do it quickly. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing you qualified people for it, so you can hire the right candidate for your role, and you can do it fast. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Let's talk about the defense. I want to start by talking about CJ Moore, who had the pick 6, which is so exciting to just see this defense get some points on the board too and try to match the offense's energy. He has this amazing play, this great pick 6, gets 6 points on the board for the Giants, and then he ended up with a gruesome leg injury on the return. He had to get an air cast put on his leg, and then he was taken by an ambulance after the game to the hospital. So everyone keep your fingers crossed that hopefully he's okay, but I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon, which is unfortunate, but hell of a game for him, and he ended on a high note. So I wish him the best, speedy recovery. I hope that he's okay. Some defensive stats and players that stood out. So the team had 60 total tackles, 37 solo, 1 sack, 7 tackles for loss, 8 pass deflections, 3 quarterback hits, and of course, the 1 touchdown. So I want to start with Cordell Flott, who got some good snaps this game. I really was hoping to see a lot more of him. Honestly, I was. But when he was on the field, he did a great job in coverage. He had another pass deflection at the perfect time. He seems like he's starting to come into his own. And when he's on the field, he makes plays. He's done a really great job in coverage. Where this leaves him and Tay Banks, I don't know. I think that Tay Banks not playing in the last 2 games is ultimately going to hurt him. And Brandon Brown said this week, they talk about this a lot. The best ability is availability. But not only that what you do on practice and game day is what will ultimately secure your spot on the roster. And I had that going through my head as I'm watching Cordell Flott last night. And I'm just thinking to myself, Cordell Flott might have done enough to earn that roster spot and be the starting CB2 opposite of Debo. It's going to be interesting. We'll find out soon enough, but I am excited to see, whether it's him or Banks on the field. I still have a little bit of hope there, regardless of who it is, knowing that we have a Debo, but I'm excited to just get some Giants football and see these guys make plays when it counts. All right, so let's move along to some guys who stood out. So we had Trace Ford, Makari Page, Tomon Fox, Deontay Johnson, TJ Moore, Corey Durden, Darius Alexander, all with tackles for loss. Out of those guys, I think Trace Ford had a really nice game. He kind of seemed like he was all over the field. Very good tackler, made some really nice tackles throughout the game too, especially that TFL. I think if it's between him and Tomon Fox, who Tomon Fox got the only sack last night, I think it's a hard decision, but I do feel like Trace Ford has stood out more over the last couple games than Tomon Fox has. So I'm curious to see what they end up deciding there. It's going to be very interesting. Next up, I want to talk about Makari Page, who now has stacked together 2 good games in a row. He ended up with 4 tackles, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. And again, the tackles for loss, like every time I see that, I'm like, this is giving Brian Burns, and this is what I want to see from all of these players. So did Makari Page do enough to make this roster? I'm not so sure, but I think the fact that he had a good game, tackle for loss, good coverage, he maybe solidified a spot on the practice squad. Next up, someone else who had a good game. All right, I want to talk about O'Donnell Fortune. Again, another guy that I think is going to be a practice squatter. He's a South Carolina guy, so I'm always rooting for him. But, he started out getting reps with the 4s and then the 3s, and now he's been playing with the 2s, which I think has been good. He got a lot of playing time last night, and I thought overall he had a good game. His tackling skills were efficient. He was able to get guys to the ground, and he had 3 pass deflections. So this was his best game so far. Again, it's preseason. He's going against the 2s and 3s, but I think he might have increased his stock enough to potentially warrant a practice squad spot. And he also has versatility between the cornerback and safety position. So I think that's something that's also going to help him earn a spot, which is helpful. Next up, I want to talk about Darius Alexander, who had a quarterback hit and a tackle for loss. He's getting on the scoreboard, which is good. It's something that we haven't seen over the last couple of weeks from him. I still feel like he's a little behind the mark, a little slow on certain instances, like slow to get off his blocks. He's not always that efficient in the run game, but I think it's just going to come with time with him. And, I said this last week, but I think we have to be patient. And again, I just want to see progress out of him. I want to see improvement. And I think we saw that tonight when some of the things that he did showed up on the stat sheet, where in previous weeks we didn't see that. And it came at opportune time. So still optimistic about it, Darius Alexander. Let's not freak out about it, just yet. So overall good game from him. I thought DJ Davidson also has stacked together a couple good games, which is going to help him out because I think there's still a lot of question marks around the defensive line. You've pretty much got Dexter, Roy Robertson Harris, and Nacho, who are basically going to be your top 3. But then you've got Chauncey Golston, who I'm pretty sure, he's making this roster. You've got DJ Davidson, Darius Alexander. You've also got Elijah Chapman. You've got Elijah Garcia. Elijah Chapman also plays on offense, can be a fullback. Also, I want to see Elijah Chapman if he makes this roster. They better put him on the field when they're doing a tush push. I want to see the Giants try a tush push with him. I think it would be electric and would probably work. But I think, that kind of covers it for me with the defense. Another guy who had a pretty good game, I think, was Art Green, 5 tackles, 4 solo. He made some nice plays. He's a guy who's also fighting for that type of roster spot. But overall, I think from preseason as a whole, there's a lot of good things that came out of it. And I think, at the very least, we should kind of feel on board with what Joe Schoen said, is that our backups put up 30 points, 30 plus points every single game. We won 3 games in a row. I couldn't wait after the game to see that Abdul Carter tweet with the W and then said dubs only. Like, this is the type of energy that this team needs. They need the confidence to say, okay, we did it in preseason. We can do it in the regular season. We're capable of making plays. We can move the ball down the field. The defense is good at making stops and getting stops when it matters on third down. They held these teams to 25 points or less. And the Bills are a playoff team every year. So they're a lot better than the other 2 teams that we played, to be fair. But still held them to 25 points, still won the game. So I just think that there are reasons to be optimistic. Next week, we are going to do a 53-man roster production. I'm going to do it before the roster cut day, which is August 26th. And then I'm excited. I'm having a Commanders content creator on. We are going to preview the Giants versus Commanders. So it's almost football season, guys. I cannot wait. Please subscribe, rate the podcast, review it, share it with a friend. We've got all good stuff coming your way. Hopefully that includes some wins this year. And I'm going to be live streaming all of the away games. So stay tuned for that so we can all collectively, hopefully, enjoy the game together. And if it's not so enjoyable, then we can all be angry together. But at the very least, we'll all be together as Giants fans rooting on for our favorite team and hope that it turns into some wins. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next week.